Lourdes, have you ever been told just to be rational? I know you have. No,
Oh,
seriously. Have you ever been told, just to be rational when you're upset, right? You're really upset. And they say this to you like, your feelings are the problem. Or try to, have you ever tried to reason your way out of anxiety, only to really end up more frustrated, right?
100%, Maria. You've got my number. I have 100% been in that situation where I've been told to use logic and not be so emotional. It's like, okay. Um, Today we're talking about why emotions aren't the enemy and why the Stoics understood this long before neuroscience. So if you've ever felt like you're at war with your own feelings, this episode is for you.
So welcome back to Coaching Conversations. I'm Maria 𝐒𝐲𝐶. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and life coach. And I help people transform their lives fast by combining ancient wisdom with modern psychology. And this is part 2 to our Stoic mini course. Last time we spoke about why knowing better isn't enough and the importance of having a practice.
Yes, I'm Lourdes Leeper, and as a life coach and mindfulness teacher, I empower people to unlock their potential and cultivate confidence and calm. Today, we're diving into the myth that reason and emotion are enemies, when in actuality, they're really teammates. They're on the same team.
Right. And just a quick reminder, this podcast is educational and supportive. It's not a replacement for therapy or for professional mental health care. So let's get into it.
Yeah. So there's this old idea that you're either logical or emotional, like you have to pick a side. And we hear it all the time, right? I'm just too emotional. I need to be more rational. And people get really down on themselves for this like perceived lack, this perceived inability to be more rational and less emotional. And uh, real real life isn't that neatly divided. Your brain is wired for both, and the Stoics knew this even without brain scans.
Right. Even before the brain scans, as you said, the cognitive, they were like the original cognitive scientists without the heavy equipment that we have and technology that we have today. But modern neuroscience backs them up. The amygdala, the emotional center, and the frontal lobes, the reasoning center, are deeply connected. So your feelings and your thoughts are always in conversation. They're not enemies, they're partners. They're akin to, or they are basically in a relationship. And that relationship, like any other relationship, has to be cultivated. You have to work on that relationship. That's what we're advocating when we are speaking about, Stoic wisdom and mindfulness and psychology. We're speaking about that relationship that you have between your emotions and your frontal lobes.
Yeah, and it's bringing it all into balance so that you're not denying your emotions and you're not being a slave to them, not letting your emotions rule when really reason would be beneficial, right?
Right. It's really a dance. And, a lot of us, for a very long time, we let our emotions dominate how we react, how we interact with others. And then when we're calm and we're centered, we're able to use our reason and our logic. And so what we need to do is make sure that they marry each other, the emotions and your reason, that they have a fluid dance instead of one taking over sometimes and the other one taking over another times. When you marry your emotions with your frontal lobe, you're really a very compassionate person.
So let's break this down. Say you get a stressful email. Your amygdala fires up. You get alerted. It's signal, danger, threat. And meanwhile, your frontal lobes are trying to make sense of it. They're like, did I mess up? Am I in trouble? How bad is this? Right?
Yeah, the story you tell yourself about the feelings, that shapes what you're going to do next. If your story is, I always screw up, your body reacts with anxiety or it reacts with shame. If your story is, this is fixable, I can handle it, you might feel a little nervous because you're entering into, territory that you haven't entered before, but you stay steady, you stay focused.
Mm. And the Stoics taught this. It's not the emotion itself, it's the judgment you attach to it. So the key is the story you're telling yourself. This reminds me of that Shakespeare quote, there's nothing either good or bad, it's thinking makes it so, something like that. I'm sure I butchered it. But but it's that perception. It's our own story that we go into that takes us down one path or another. And this is a point of like control for us, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that if you come from an environment where a certain behavior is not rewarded, maybe even there's repercussions for certain behavior, then you automatically think, oh, I'm in danger. So your nervous system thinks, oh, this is not okay. And the story that you tell yourself is akin to saying, I'm not safe, right? It's not that you are safe or that you're not safe. It's that you feel that you're not safe. And in most cases, it's not that you're not safe. It's that maybe you said something incorrectly. Maybe you misinterpreted something. Maybe your perspective needs to be broadened. So it's data points. It's just information that you've interpreted in a certain way. You've either seen it as a dark cloud or you've seen it as a silver lining, but it's you seeing it. It's you interpreting it. It's not what it actually is. It's what you've decided it is.
Yeah. Wayne Dyer always said, well, I think this was the title of his book, Change the Way You See Things, and the things you see change. Again, I probably butchered it. But it's exactly that. It's like, how are you looking at things and situations and feedback and data points? What is the story that you're telling yourself about it? Sometimes we don't actually have enough information, and yet we're down a path certain that it's not only dangerous, it's hurtful, it's bad, when actually it might have been neutral, but we're categorizing it in a certain way.
Yeah, what's really strange sometimes is that we have the habit of making it about ourselves, and often it's not even about you. It has nothing to do with you. And so when you start these little shifts in your perspective by just stepping away and even asking, is this have anything to do with me? That's something that can help you to shift that narrative that you have, that story in your head. But let's go into the tool. That thinking leads to behavior, which through repetition shifts your emotional baseline. It's like training a muscle. You can't control that first meeting, but you can train your response.
Mm. The more you practice responding differently, the more your emotions start to follow suit. And that's why the Stoics journaled. They rehearsed and reflected. They were building that emotional muscle.
Right. And if you're familiar with cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT, it uses that same method. You catch your thought, then you change the thought, and then you practice the new behavior. And then you keep doing that cycle over and over again. You keep repeating that. And over time, your feelings change. They follow suit to your story. And the key here, that first pivotal step, is the awareness. That's the thing that makes the whole sequence flow. And again, this is why the Stoics, they did the meditation, they did the journaling, and they did that self-reflection, because everything happens in that pause. So when you pause, that's when you can reflect, you can journal, you can meditate. And when you're pausing and you're looking at what you did, and if you look at it from a different perspective, then you've got a chance. But it starts with that initial pause. And by meditating and journaling and doing that self-reflection, you start training yourself to pause.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I really love about, all the research that's been done on meditation and mindfulness is that you're actually changing your brain functionally and structurally. The meditation, it deactivates certain areas of your brain, like the amygdala, and it activates other areas of your brain, like the prefrontal cortex. And so it helps you encounter the information that you're encountering day by day in situations in a different way. You're going to react differently because your brain is changing, and it's such an amazing thing that we actually have the ability, the capacity to change our brains. Geeking out for a minute. So here's an example. Say you get negative feedback at work, and your first reaction is anger, or maybe it's shame. And this is your opportunity to just pause, right? And notice the feeling and name it. That stung. I feel embarrassed. I feel ashamed, right? You kind of want to crawl into your shell sometimes. And next, check the story. Am I telling myself I'm a failure? Am I telling myself that I'm going to lose my job? Or are you telling yourself that this is an opportunity for growth? What you tell yourself in that moment changes the trajectory.
Yeah, and then the next small step or behavior is ask for clarification. Take a breath and write down what you can learn. And you repeat this process over time, you get feedback. And over time, your brain learns feedback isn't danger. It's information. It's just data points, That's important. It's just information.
Yeah, yeah. That's the Stoic sequence in action. And by practicing it ourselves, we're changing our own pattern of behavior. If for example you get some feedback and you notice that your system, your whole body is reacting and you feel like you're in danger, you can actually take that time, take that moment to soothe yourself and bring yourself back into safety and remind yourself that you're actually safe, right?
Right. That safety, that's one of the reasons, of many, that we go into that nervousness and we have those negative stories. And at the bottom, what's really been triggered is your fear of being, excommunicated from the group that you're in. Being rejected and being thrown out of that safety net is sometimes what you're most worried about. And if you can label it down to its root, then you're going to be able to calm yourself a lot faster. You're going to be able to see the reality and say, okay, so nobody's throwing me out. I'm okay. And then you realize that it's just a story. Again, you realize that you've just created this massive story where you're exiled emotionally, physically part of the network, you've exiled yourself with that story. You feel that threat, but it's a threat that you've created because of the story. You know, I noticed in my practice that in the morning is when I would do those I would have those negative conversations, or I would replay an argument and say, "Oh, I should have said this, I should have said that." But at the core was that fear of rejection, that fear that I might be seen as someone that didn't bring value or someone that could be dismissed. And so when I realized that that was what was creating these narratives, and I was catching it because I was meditating and because of the journaling, then I started to change the story and let go of the argument. But it takes the practice. But once you start practicing, it yields results fairly quickly.
Yeah. Thanks, Maria. Should we move on to
Yeah, of course. You know, if you try this once and you feel triggered, you know, what I'm saying is that that's normal. Your nervous system needs practice. It's not perfection. The goal isn't to erase your emotions. It's to build trust that you can handle your feelings, whatever they are.
yeah, over time, just as Maria explained, this space between the feeling and reacting gets bigger, and truly, that's where your freedom lives. If you don't notice that you're constantly being triggered by what other people say or do, then you can't catch yourself in action of a kind of spiraling out and having these conversations like Maria, just described, this rumination of I shoulda, coulda, woulda, and
Mhm.
and the rest of it, right? But when you develop a practice of reflecting, of journaling, of meditating, then you realize that, oh, I've been walking around with all of these exposed buttons, right? That anyone can just come around and push. But in the practice, you kind of start to disable those buttons by bringing your awareness to them. And the fact that you're running all of these scripts in your head about the meaning of the situation, the meaning of the interaction, when actually, the intention from the other person might have just been neutral. It might not have been even negative at all, but you interpreted it that way. That was your perspective, your judgment that you layered on top.
Right. And it's sometimes not even about you. And that's really more often than you think, that people are reacting based on their circumstances, their history, their past. They're reacting. Most people go around being reactive, and it has absolutely nothing to do with you. They pushed your button because it was it was like that story where if somebody bumps into you, and when you have a full cup of coffee, what do you think happens? And most people think, oh, you spill your coffee. No, you spill what's inside of you. So yeah, they bumped into you, but that's all something that you can actually do something about. And it really has nothing to do with you. It's all about them. It's something that you can control, is what we're basically saying. Focus on what you can control.
Mm.
Stoic principle.
And this makes me think of, in I'm a mom, and I have two daughters who are young women now. But as a child myself, I know that I misinterpreted my parents' behavior to mean something about myself, something negative about myself, when really it was all about them. But I as a child, I created story around maybe their lack of availability to me at a certain moment. And that's something that, over time kind of grew, and, beliefs around it, and just buttons that could, hijack me in a moment based on other similar behavior. And so this conversation kind of pains me a little bit, because I know that, as parents, we're only human, and we make mistakes, and we're under pressure and under, dealing with our own stuff. And sometimes our children misinterpret our behavior to mean something about themselves. And then this is the work that they have to do to kind of get over and not be triggered and not have all their, all their buttons being pushed constantly, because they derived meaning from something that, like Maria said, had nothing to do with them.
Yeah. Yeah, that is unfortunately what happens. And the beauty is finding the grace to realize that you're the narrator of all these stories, and you can stop blaming other people and find the forgiveness and compassion for the people, and forgiveness for yourself for making up these stories, because at the end of the day, we really don't know unless we have the conversation what the intent was from anyone, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So, in the next episode, we're going to talk about reframing insults, how to stop letting other people's words hijack your day. If today's episode landed, reach out. Let's have a conversation. No pressure, just clarity.
So for more wisdom and resources to architect your own transformation, look for our book, A Path to Resilience, Small Steps to an Unshakable You. I happen to have a copy right here. But it is a blend of mindfulness, the concepts of modern psychology, and Stoicism. And it's a year-long companion. So it's a daily piece of wisdom on values, on courage, justice, and self-discipline. And it's now available at Barnes & Noble, at Ingram Sparks, at Bookshop, and on Amazon as well.
Thanks so much for being here. We're walking this path right alongside you. Take care of your heart, take care of your mind, and take care of yourself. If this episode resonated with you, like, follow, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a reminder that they're stronger than they think they are. We'll see you next time.